Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I am going to discuss neuron. Neuron is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system. The cell of nervous system are called neuron. Neuron have three distinct parts: the dendrites, the cell body, axon and its branches. These parts help them to send and receive chemical and electrical signals. Neuron is a structure which is active all the time in ring of life. Neuron is a specialized cell which is electrically excitable. Neuron make an electrical-like circuit which run and control all the appliances of a system. In same way, in the body, neuronal circuit control nearly all activity and functions of the body. Neuron is the basic structure and function unit of the nervous system. They are electrically excitable cells in the nervous system that function to process and transmit information. There are many types of neuron among the estimated 10 billion in the human brain. The human brain contains 10 billion neurons. Each typically shares the same characteristic. They are same. The number of 10 billion, but the structure is and the characteristic of these neurons are same. Neurons are the core component of brain, spinal cord and peripheral nervous system and peripheral nerves. There are many types of neuron among the estimated 10 billion in the human brain. Each typically share the same characteristic. The flow of information in neuron move in the following direction: dendrite to soma, from soma to axon to terminal button, and then to synapse. Dendrite, from here information are transmitted to soma, then into the axon, and in the last into the terminal button, and then they synapse with another neuron or muscle. With neuron they make synapse, they transmit the information to neuron at synaptic level, or with the muscle fiber which make neuromuscular junction, so transmit information at the neuromuscular junction. Basic structure of neuron. Neuron is composed of dendrites. They are branch-like structure, bark of the tree. They originate from the soma. This is called the soma or body of the neuron. These dendrites originate from the soma. And there is a thread-like structure which also originates from the soma, and this structure is called axon. There is a uncovered area which is not covered by the myelin sheath, and this uncovered area of neuron is called node of Ranvier. Axon helix. This is an anatomical area and highly excitable area of the neuron, and the last part of neuron is end button by which it make connection with other neuron. Axon is covered by a sheet, and this sheet is made of Schwann cell, and this sheet is called myelin sheet, which is made of Schwann cell. In each Schwann cell there is a nucleus or neurolemma. Cell which is present in the Schwann cells is called nucleus or neurolemma. The dendrites. These are the dendrites. The dendrites are cellular extension with many branches. These are the cellular extensions, and these extensions again divided into many branches. This is where the majority of input to the neuron occur. However, information flow that is from dendrite to other neuron can also occur. The neuron receive information at dendronic level. Most of the information are received at the level of dendrite, and then they say in these information in forward direction, but also information can be sent from dendrite to other neurons directly. Soma of neuron. This is soma or body of neuron. The soma of neuron is the central part of the neuron. The central part of neuron. It contains the nucleus of the cell and therefore is where most protein synthesis occur. In the body of neuron, there is nucleus, and when nucleus is present, DNA is present, and then that area in the nucleus synthesis of protein occur. The nucleus range from 3 to 18 micrometer in diameter. The diameter of this nucleus is 3 to 18 micrometer. Axon, this is axon, a thread-like structure, is a fine cable-like projection which can extend 10, 100 or even 10 of thousands of times the diameter of the soma in length. The length of this axon is 10 times or 10 of 1,000 times more than the diameter of soma. The axon carry nerve signal away from the soma and also carry some type of information back to it. Its function is, the axon function is, it carry information from the soma and also bring information to the soma. Many neurons have only one axon, but this axon usually undergoes extensive branching, enabling communication with many target cells. Schwann cells. Schwann cells that surround large diameter axons are called type A and type B fiber. The thickness of these fibers are 2 micrometer larger, undergo a warping process called myelination. This thread-like structure is warped by myelin Schwann cell, and this warping is called myelination. Axon helix. The part of the axon where it emerges from the soma is called the axon helix. This is the axon helix which emerges from the soma. Besides being an anatomical structure, the axon helix is also the part of neuron that has the greatest density of voltage-dependent sodium channel. Here in this area, the axon helix, there is great density of voltage-dependent sodium channel. This makes it the most excitable and easily excitable part of the neuron and the spike initiate zone for the axon. In neurological terms, it has the greatest hyperpolarization action potential threshold, as it contains more sodium, so this area is more excitable and has the greater potential threshold. This is the enlarged picture, the soma, and this is the anatomical structure which originates from the soma, and it's called axon helix, and it contains large number of sodium channels that make it most excitable part of the axon. Classification of neurons. Classification of neuron on structural basis. Classification on basis of function. Classification by action on other neuron. Classification by neurotransmitter release. Structural classification. Neuron structurally classified as unipolar, bipolar, pseudopolar, and multipolar. Structural classification. Unipolar neuron or pseudo-unipolar. Dendrites and axon emerge from same process. You can see this is body of the neuron and this is the axon, and the dendrites originate from the same process. Unipolar neurons have only one process and are found mostly in invertebrates. Pseudo-unipolar neurons have no dendrites. The branched axon serve both functions. There is no dendrites. They are terminal button on one side and on the other side there are no dendrites. A pseudo-unipolar neuron has one axon that projects from the cell body up for relatively a very short distance before splitting into two branches. The cell body, from here axon originated, and then this short axon split into two parts or two branches. Pseudo-unipolar neurons are sensory neurons. The peripheral branches extend from the cell body to organ in the periphery, including skin, joint, muscle, and central branch extend from the cell body. This is the central branch of the pseudo-unipolar neuron, and these are the peripheral branches. The peripheral branches terminate in this structure, and the central branch communicate with the soma and in the spinal cord. Bipolar neuron. A bipolar neuron or bipolar cell is a type of neuron characterized by having both an axon and a dendrite extending from the soma or cell of the body in opposite direction. Bipolar neuron have two poles. From one pole, the axon originates, and from the other pole, dendrite originates on the opposite poles. These neurons are predominantly found in retina and olfactory system. They are neurons of the retina and olfactory system. Many bipolar cells are specialized sensory neuron, apparent neuron. Sensory neurons are called apparent neuron for the transmission of sense. As such, they are part of the sensory pathway for smell, sight, taste, hearing, touch, balance, and proprioception. Multipolar neuron. A multipolar neuron is a type of neuron that possesses a single axon and many dendrites. This is a single axon, and from the body many dendrites are originated, allowing for the integration of a great deal of information from other neurons. As they have many dendrites, and these dendrites are further subdivided into further branches, so they receive many information from other neurons. These processes are projection from the neuron cell body. Multipolar neurons constitute the majority of neurons in the central nervous system. They are mainly the neurons of central nervous system. They include motor neuron and interneuron. Relying neurons are most commonly found in the cortex of the brain and the spinal cord. Peripherally, multipolar neurons are found in autonomic ganglia. Axon and dendrite in the central nervous system are typically only about a micrometer thick. In the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, the neurons are only a micrometer thick, while some in the peripheral nervous system are much thicker. The neurons in the peripheral nervous system are thicker. The soma is usually about 10 to 25 micrometer in diameter and often is not much larger than the cell nucleus it contains. The longest axon of a human motor neuron can be over a meter long, reach from the base of the spine to the toe. Sensory neurons have axons that run from the toe to the dorsal column over 1.5 meter. A motor neuron which run from the toe to the dorsal column The length is 1.5 meter in adult. Classification of neuron on functional basis. One classification is receptor or sensory neuron, motor neuron, and interneuron. Sensory or afferent neurons. Sensory neurons are also called afferent neuron, carrying sensory information from all structure of the body towards the brain, enter the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. You can see this is sensory neuron. It originates in an organ, especially in skin. They contain the receptor. In these receptors they originate and then they enter. They pass through the spinal nerve and passing from the dorsal nerve root ganglia and end in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord gray matter. These neurons are specialized and sensitive to a particular physical stimuli such as light, vision, sound, audition, chemical, olfactory, or pressure, touch. These neurons can carry pain, cold, touch, carrying by prenerve ending, pressure, by pacinial corpuscles, and touch by Merkel disc, and from muscle spindle they carry sensory information, and from Golgi tendon apparatus they carry kinesthetic information to the spinal cord. Motor or afferent neuron carry information away from the brain. Neurons receive impulses from other neurons and transmit this information to muscle or gland. These neurons, the motor neuron, receive information from the sensory neuron and then for proper action they send information away from the spinal cord to the effector organ. These neurons are of two types, alpha motor neuron and gamma motor neuron. Alpha motor neuron. The alpha motor neuron gives rise to last type A alpha motor neuron fiber, average 14 micrometer in diameter. These are large neurons and they are called A alpha motor neuron and their diameter is large and it is equal to 14 micrometer. These fibers branch many times after they enter the muscle and innervate the large skeletal muscle fiber. The extraphyseal fiber or the large or the actual fiber of the muscle are innervated by these alpha A type of motor neuron. Stimulation of a single alpha neuron fiber excites from 3 to several hundred skeletal muscle fibers, which are collectively called the motor unit. When one neuron is stimulated, it can stimulate several hundred skeletal muscle fibers, and this is called the motor unit. These are the extraphyseal or muscle fiber, large muscle fiber, and this is a muscle spindle or a receptor which is present in the muscle belly, and these are the small muscle fibers. So the large muscle fibers are supplied or innervated by the A alpha fiber. Gamma motor neuron. Gamma motor neurons are located in the spinal cord anterior horn. These gamma motor neurons transmit impulses through much smaller type A gamma, written as A gamma motor neuron fiber, average 5 micrometer. The A alpha are 14 micrometer and they are thinner, 5 micrometer in diameter, which go to small special skeletal muscle fiber called intraphyseal fiber. These are the intraphyseal fiber which are supplied by the gamma motor neuron. Interneuron or intrinsic neuron form the largest group in the nervous system. They form connection between a sensory and motor neuron. Here you can see this is a sensory neuron which enter through the dorsal root ganglia into the spinal cord, and this is the motor neuron which emerge from the spinal cord through the ventral root or anterior root. Between these two neurons, one is sensory and the other is motor. We have a neuron. This neuron is called the interneuron, which connect the sensory and motor neuron with each other. Classification by action on other neuron. Excitatory neuron excite their target neuron. Excitatory neurons in the brain are often glutamatergic. They cause excitation and they release neurotransmitter glutamine. That's why they are called glutamatergic neuron and they cause excitation. Inhibitory neuron, their target neuron are inhibitory in nature. Inhibitory neurons are often interneuron. As we discussed in the previous slide, these neurons use such neurotransmitters as dopamine, acetylcholine, and serotonin. They are inhibitory. Glutamatergic cause excitation, and their dopamine, acetylcholine, and serotonin in the nervous system, central nervous system, cause inhibition. Remember that dopamine has a dual action, which is excitatory and inhibitory. And acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction is excitatory, while in brain or central nervous system is called inhibition. Classification by discharge pattern. Neuron can be classified according to their electrophysiological characteristic. Tonic or regular spiking neurons. Some neurons are typically constantly or tonically active. These are the neurons which are constantly active, and their example is interneuron in the neurostriatum. The tonicity of these neurons is regular. They have regular spikes. The interval between the spikes are regular and they are active all the time and they release their impulses, but at regular interval. Phasic or bursting neuron. Neurons that fire in bursts are called phasic. Fast spiking. Some neurons are notable for their fast firing rate. For example, some type of cortical inhibitory neurons cells in globus pallidus. These phasic neurons release their impulses in bursts. For some time they remain quiet and then they discharge their impulses in bursts very fast and then they become silent. So there is interval of activation and then there is a period of inactivation. So this is called phasic. They perform their activity in phases. For some time they remain quiet and for some time they discharge in burst. Thin spike neurons. Action potential of some neurons are more narrow compared to other. In this graph you can see that the space between these tonic neurons is more. Here the space in these neurons are less. Here you can compare these, that these are the bursting neurons. Here the space is narrow between the spikes. So they are called thin spike neuron. The example of these neurons are interneuron in prefrontal cortex or thin spiking neurons. This is a graph, tonic neurons and thin spiking neuron, and here are the bursting neuron or phasic neurons. and these are also thin spiky, but these neurons are more thin than these two types. Classification by neurotransmitter released by the neurons. Some examples are cholinergic, GABAergic, glutamatergic, and dopaminergic neuron. Myelin sheath. Oligodendrocyte and Schwann cell form the myelin sheath that ensolate axon in the central and peripheral nervous system respectively. The Schwann cell coat the axon in the peripheral nerve, and the oligodendrocyte and Schwann cell form the myelin sheath that ensolate axon in the central and peripheral nervous system respectively. The oligodendrocytes coat the axon in the brain and central nervous system, and the Schwann cell coat the axon in the peripheral nervous system, and in this way it insulates one neuron from the other respectively. Glial cell. In addition to neuron, the nervous system is polluted with another category of cell which are called glial cells. Glial cells are approximately 10 times more plentiful than neurons. The number are 10 times more than the neurons, but since they are approximately 1/3 of the size, they take up equal space. If the size is small, so the size occupied by the neuron, the same size is also occupied by the glial cells. Glia is a Greek term meaning glue. Glial cells serve as the putty that held the neuron together. Type of glial cell. There are 5 types of glial cell in CNS. Astrocytes, these are the astrocytes, oligodendrocyte, microglial cell, and ependymal cell, and radial glial cell. Synapse. The human brain has a huge number of synapses. Each of the 10 billion neurons, that is 1 trillion, has on average 7,000 synaptic connection to other neuron. Here you can see that a neuron can receive millions of synapses from other neuron. Synapse means connection between neuron and neuron. It has been estimated that the brain of a 3-year-old child has about 10,000 trillion synapses. This number declines with age, stabilizing by adulthood. Estimated vary for an adult ranging from 10,000 to 5,000 trillion. Here this is the magnifying picture of the neuron where it receives synapse from other neuron at dendritic level, at soma level, and at hallux level. This is the presynaptic neuron which make synapse at soma and dendrite and also on axon. So dendrites and dendrite level, here you can see that one neuron make synapse with another neuron at dendritic level. Here the presynaptic neuron make synapse soma. This is axonal soma synapse, and this is axonal synapse, that axon makes synapse with axon. So as usual, as I have added here one MCQ. Please pause the video, read the stem and select the right option. The question is, one of the following give the correct sequence of component in a reflex arc. This is, so read the stem. Here the right option is D. So thank you. Please down the bell icon and write down your valuable comments for the improvement of channel and for in-time notification. Thank you once again.